Awesome. Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Today, we are going to tackle the topic of growing and changing in relationship with others. So, how you grow within yourself while still being in relationship, partnership, friendship, like within the context of you being in connection and relationship to another.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do we want to
It can
start,
be tricky.
honestly?
It
Can
can be
be
tricky. It can be very, very, very
Yeah.
tricky. Well, I think first off, it's good to acknowledge the difference between um, familial relationships
Mm.
and chosen relationships, whether those are friendships or classmates or partners or whatever. Um, and so I think there might be a slight difference in terms of navigating, changing and growing within familial relationships. One's, like a the tribe that you were born into, so to
Yeah.
speak, versus the tribe that you choose. Because obviously, um, we have all known people who have surrounded themselves with chosen family versus, blood family. So I think the easiest place to start is um, with friendships,
Okay.
like people that you're in friendships with. Um, and for me, like I think most people, it's kind of like it's easier to identify, like looking back when you were like in grade school or high school or college,
Hmm.
and you had, a friend that you were friends with for a period of time, and then for whatever reason, you know, you moved on.
Yeah. And we talked
But
about that some in our
we
previous
did,
videos as well.
yeah. So
And those are
managing changing.
easier in a way. They're like simpler relationships to notice a change because you're going through physical transitions and
Mm,
physical changes where you're graduating high school or you're finishing college or you're getting, married or whatever like normal like life stages are. Um and if it's somebody you met in school, then they're probably going through those similar changes as well, or they're not. And then that's kind of like times where there's like splits as well.
yeah. So I guess one thing that I can talk about recently for myself is, um, like I have friends who have children, and I also have friends who don't have children. And so one thing that I've noticed over the course of probably like the last 5 years is, um, just like the simple like availability of my friends who
Mhm.
have children. It's just like their availability just is not as frequent,
Mhm.
or as often. And so I guess for me, you know, I have been really conscious and aware of those shifts and of those changes, and also really worked hard to match my effort
Yeah.
to when they do have availability. Um,
And you are one of the few people in my life who knows how to do that and does it in a very aware way.
mhm,
I have people in my life who don't have children and they don't see it. They don't know how to adjust that. Or maybe it's that they put the request of it on me to kind of guide like how I need it to go.
mhm,
Um, but there's no understanding of what I feel that way, that there's no understanding of what my life is if they're not in the same or a similar situation with
Yeah, the
managing kids
circumstance.
and managing. And I see it also in I have kids in different ranges of ages, right? So I have a 3.5 year old, 12-year old, 15. So they're in very different places in their lives. And to have friends who just have a 3.5 year old is their lives are also very different than my life already,
Hmm.
right? So
Right.
their expectations are like, oh, like, let's do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, wait, but I also have to drive this kid and drive this kid and these times and
Right.
feed them at these times and like, right. So the expectations are different. The life is different. Yeah.
Right.
Just
Totally.
yeah.
So I think for me, what makes me successful at navigating that um is is being very present
Mm.
in the moment with with the people that I'm engaging with at any moment in time. And and also I will ask questions.
You do ask questions.
I ask questions like, does this work for you? You know, like, does this work for you? Does this not work for you? Could you be available? This is what I want. Like I will ask for what I need, like I spoke to one of my friends the other day, and I said I would like to see you in the next 3 weeks, so let me know your availability.
Oh,
You know, so I think
yeah.
that's a piece of it. So I guess really kind of what we've been talking about is you being aware of you
Hmm.
and where you're at
Hmm.
and where your points of availability are able to meet others.
Hmm.
And I think if you are putting the awareness and the energy and the effort into maintaining those points of meeting, however frequently or infrequently they come about, then there's a maintaining of the connection, but like you said, when you're talking about, like you might be growing and somebody else might not be growing, and sometimes those people will catch up to you at some point in the future, and sometimes they won't.
Yeah. Um, what do I want to say about that? What you said about asking questions and being present. And I'm here, what I'm hearing is you slow down, you're paying attention to what your needs are, right? Like in that simple, not so simple question of like, I want to, I'd like to see you in the next 3 weeks. When works for you? You're aware of your needs
Hmm.
and you're giving the other person the space to be aware of theirs and to
Hmm.
accommodate, right? And it's like a beautiful like span of time. 3 weeks is a long time.
Hmm.
There's like space to feel and think and so it's
And live your life too,
live
like
your life.
whatever else is
Yeah.
going on.
Like can
Yeah.
you and so I love that. I love that I love the awareness and I love that it feels very respectful to me to
Hmm.
to say that and to say it that way. Um,
I've also gotten to this point where I've had lots of friendships, and I've had, lots of partnerships, and people come and go in my life. And when I find someone who, kind of satisfies a certain aspect or a certain piece, or can like meet me in a certain place, like at one point in time I had this one friend where it was just all about laughter. We could just make each other laugh for hours and hours and hours, and it was so much fun, and I just laughed and laughed, and it was like silliness and very playful. Um and so it's like when I find people who kind of hit those points of, I like to laugh.
yeah.
I have
Yeah,
somebody that I can
what
laugh
the
with.
need
It's
is.
important.
Yeah, to look at, I mean, I've worked with kind of looking at friendships as different boutiques, and
Mm.
what does each boutique have to offer, rather
Right.
than going into like a Walmart or like, just this like massive store that has everything, and the quality of the things that they sell there is lower.
Hmm.
So to have these different boutiques, specialty stores where you're going
Mm.
in for laughter, or you're going in for safety, like emotional
Right.
one kind of thing, or you're going in just to talk about your kids, or you're
Right.
going in for like parental support, or you're going in to talk about your work and what's happening there, or just, and sometimes the boutiques are no longer what we need. Like sometimes it's like,
Hmm.
awesome, like that was so great and so special, and now I have other stores I need to get to. And
Right.
with some friendships, they are always going to be there, and it doesn't have to be that I go to that store every day, or even twice a year. Like I have friends who I consider them my best friends, and I haven't talked to them in a year, and we'll
Yeah.
come back and it's like magic. It just feels so good and so connected, and like, and it's okay on both ends. Like we're
Yeah.
both okay.
It's like leapfrogging. It's like
Yeah,
you leapfrog from one connection point to the next connection point, but the connection is not broken.
yeah,
And so I think that that's one thing where when you find the folks that you have that mutual understanding with, or that mutual need, and you give it the space and allow it to evolve into something that is really nurturing and nourishing for both people, and supports your your growth and evolution, for both individuals who are participating. Like to me, that's where the allowing of the change and the
yeah,
growth is available.
yeah,
And not every partnership, connection, boutique store, whatever, is going to allow that. Like it might, that boutique might be like a pop-up for 6 months, it
yeah,
might be a pop-up for 3 years.
yeah,
um but to me, like that goes, it goes right back to being present and being aware.
yeah, yeah. It all does.
Yeah.
That's what the secret of life is.
The secret of life. Let's be present and aware.
Yeah.
Let's be present and aware. um yeah, because when when you start to feel somebody change and evolve, it can be uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Like on the flip side of it, it can be very, very uncomfortable. It can be confusing, it can be
Yep,
frightening.
yep,
Like you can feel like you're losing your grip, or your connection, or your stability. Like there's a lot of fear,
yep,
really, is what can come up, is can be triggered, because especially if you've had some stability or some longevity in a certain thing, or you've come to expect or rely upon,
yeah,
a particular relationship. It can be, it can kind of trigger all those things. So how have you handled that that when you've started to feel, um someone shift, like a relationship shift?
um, it's depended on which relationship it was, with who. I normally ask myself how important the relationship is for me. Like, if this is a relationship that I want to maintain, why? Like, what needs am I meet are getting met? Um, what's working for me? What's not working for me? Um, is it a relationship that I want to invest in?
Hmm.
Um, and depending on those answers, that's how I'll navigate like what my next step is. Um,
Mhm.
if it's a relationship that I want to invest in, then there's either a conversation of like, okay, what's happening for you? Like, what are you going through? Like, what are you needing? Um, how can I, what does support look like from my end? Like, you know, what do you need? Um, and then to be aware of what I need. And if I, having the space to say that back. Um, yeah, I think, and if it's a relationship that's not really something I want to invest in, um, sometimes I'll just back off.
Mhm.
I'll just be like, okay, like I don't need to engage that much, or it's okay that they haven't checked in or that they haven't texted or called. Um, I'm totally good with that. Sometimes the other person will like check in more often and I don't want to engage. Um, and I'm still learning how to navigate that, um,
Mhm.
where I can say what I can respond. I'm known for not getting back to people's texts. Like people are like, what the hell? Like I'll text you and I haven't heard back from you in like 3 weeks.
Right, right.
I'm sorry.
Right.
But I've
Yeah.
I've really worked on that. I think like I want to say like this past year, I've really worked on just like responding. Like I'll get back to you when I have time or
Yeah.
um yeah.
Well, I think the other thing, just getting back to people, is, with certain people, I've developed different techniques.
Mhm.
Like there's certain folks where I leave them a video message,
Yeah.
or there's certain folks where I leave them voice messages.
Yeah.
And then there's other people that, I just text with or call with, it depends. Um,
Yeah.
like my niece and I the other day, we had our like, every 3 or 4 week 2-hour phone conversation, catch up, what's going on in your life, and
Yeah.
they're like so much fun. It's like, like she's living, doing her thing, and all that stuff. And then like every couple weeks we just like sit down and are like, yeah, this is what's going on with
That's so
me, this is
cool.
what's going on, and it's 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 really like it's a fun conversation. Like I look forward to it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that's evolved. Also too, like if, where she's at in her life, college student and all that, like
Yeah.
our connection was different when she was in high school and in grade school. And
Mhm.
um
Yeah. What I want to say is that as you're saying that it was fun, is that I'm I've learned and I'm still learning to pay attention to how I feel during and after. Well, I guess
mm,
before, during, and after interactions with my friends, with my people, with my
yeah.
partner, with anybody that's in my life on a regular basis, and kind of gauging from those feelings my needs and if and how I want to navigate through that relationship. And I have a friend who, I mean, I haven't spoken with her in probably, I want to say it may be 2 years at this point. Um, and I heard through some other friends that we were traveling to the same place just a few months ago. So I sent her a text and I said, hi, like, and I do think about her often. And I said, hi, how's it going? Like, safe travels. We're going in the same area. And she directly asked me, she was like, how come you stopped reaching out? And I was like, look, I just sat on the plane. Like, it wasn't like a time for like a deep conversation, but
Right, right.
the answer was like, the longer I waited, the harder it was to reach out, which is a true answer for me.
Hmm.
And as I thought about it, and then she said, okay, when we get back, I'd love to see you, you know, let's check in. And we got back and I haven't gotten back to her. And I check in with myself about it regularly. And I am not in a space in my life where I want to have that kind of deep, almost like uh there's a struggle there. Like what she's going through in her life is very deep and painful. And
Mhm.
I'm not in a place in my life that I can relate to those things right now, nor do
Mhm.
I want to.
Mm.
And so I'm seeing that I want to have like, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because how you described your conversation with your niece. I want to have more playful relationships right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the people that I have, more of like the intimate, like with you, like slower, like, we have conversations that are not just like play.
Mhm.
I They don't feel heavy to me.
Right.
And so even though they're deep conversations and they're meaningful and they're building and we're growing together, there's no heaviness. So I'm paying attention to that, where I don't want to bring my son along to have coffee with this friend because it feels heavy. And I don't want to
Mhm.
have him in a heavy, like kind of like sticky feel,
Mm.
like field
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm paying attention to that. And my next step is maybe to communicate that in a way, in some way. Um,
Mhm.
so there's clarity on both sides, so she's not like, why am I ghosted? Um,
Right.
but I wanted to just add that in, of like, of really paying attention to how I feel and where I am in my life and what fits me and what doesn't
Right.
fit me.
Um, yeah, you touched on a lot of really great points with what you just shared. Uh, like being aware of what you need, and also kind of how you're feeling. Like that, I love the checking in before, during, and after. That's definitely something that I try and pay attention to. And like there's a lot of times that I do pay attention to that. And um yeah, and also just being aware that like different people may serve you at different
Mm,
like milestones in your life.
yeah.
And there might be a period of time where there isn't that opportunity for connection, uh, simply because of two people being in two different places in their life. I guess the other thing too that really struck me was your use of the word heaviness, versus lightness and play. And I think that is also something that is valuable to have in your awareness. Are you in a place where you can handle and or navigate, your own heaviness or the heaviness of others? Or is it more important to play, to have relationships that you're able to play in? Um, or is it more important to have like, the lightness, that feeling of lightness in your relationships? And I I guess for me, I I definitely have more play and lightness in my current circle right now. Um, Although I will say that there definitely are moments with certain folks within that circle that there is a depth and a heaviness that sometimes can come up, and I don't hesitate to go into that space with folks and like support people through that space. I mean, I definitely have needed that support myself, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like about balance, you
Yeah.
know like I for myself, excuse me, I'm aware that that if I'm not paying attention, I could end up playing in the heaviness more
Mm.
than not. because I am comfortable. Like I'm comfortable with the intensity. I'm comfortable with,
Yeah.
like, that weight. Um, does it always serve my needs or my growth? Not always.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, the Marianne Williamson talks about in relationships how we're, um, especially when it comes to conflict, how it's a space for healing. It's a place for growth, right? This is the topic
Mhm.
that we're decided on, relationship growth and um,
Change, yeah.
change. Yeah. And so I think that I want to touch on just how in relationships, when there is conflict, when there is um, growing pains, where to see how we are with each other and how we, um, if we're able to support each other in growing, in healing from there.
Hmm.
Part of why I chose my partner is because he shines light on the things in me that I want to work on.
Hmm.
And he, I feel like I can become a better person through that
Yeah.
rather than like the dynamic of um, either just kind of like allowing those areas to be and kind of like, oh, yeah, that's just you, you know, that's how you are. No, like,
Yeah, don't worry about it. You can just be that. Yeah, don't worry about it.
and because there is love there and appreciation for who I am in general, then
Hmm.
I can see those things and I can work through those things, right? Because he loves me as my entirety,
Right.
right? So, like,
The other piece, though, with that is someone who's willing to allow the space for you to go through whatever that process
yeah,
is and whatever that process looks like for you.
yeah,
Not someone who's like, fix it
go, go,
now,
go, go,
yeah,
go, go.
now, change it now, change that
Yeah,
behavior now, like somebody who will allow it to organically evolve
yeah,
or organically, move through the stages of, recognition and understanding and then,
yeah,
evolving and all that stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. And then I wanted to also just mention about archetypes and how we are in, we've talked about archetypes in I think our initial videos. But how our archetypes relate to one another
Mm.
with our relationships, which one ignites which, and it can be archetypes, it can be planetary, like astrologically how we connect too, like think I include all of that under the same umbrella,
Mhm.
how those interact, and to notice that in relationship, to notice that, like, for me and my daughter, having like Sun and Mars on one another, like that creates a certain dynamic. And
Mhm.
so I can just have that happening, passively and ignore it, or just go, oh, that's just happening. Or I can look at it and go, okay, what does that look like in a shadow? What does that look like in light?
Mhm.
What does that look
Yep.
like neutral? Like, where do we want to go with that? How do we want to navigate those two energies, and where do we want to take it? And then we can
Yeah.
grow together. We can, I mean, even if she's doing her thing and I'm doing my thing, I can have my consciousness directed at that energy and decide what I want to do with it on my part, right? It doesn't even
Right.
have to involve her.
Yeah.
She can naturally feel my adjustments or my
Mhm.
conscious decision making about how I want to act. Um, yeah, just make like looking at those aspects, I think makes a difference. I think it's
I think it can be very, very helpful, um, if you have, if you've done the work and have the chart, like have the chart of your family, of your siblings,
so
of your
helpful.
friends. Yeah, it's very, very helpful. Like I can I can check on
Right.
my friends and their
Yeah.
kids and my nieces and my
Yeah.
nephews and my brothers and my sisters. Like I can check and see where things are going
Yeah.
on, like where the energy is for them.
Yeah.
And also I, check where the energy is for me.
Yeah.
So to me, that like goes back to like the being present, like that's all part of, like, you said it's under the same umbrella. And to me, that's an integrated part of like how I'm living, how I'm interacting, how I'm being in relationship, not only with myself, but also with others.
Yeah.
And, being as informed, um, as far as like the energetic weather,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, the archetypes
Mhm.
that folks are working with,
Mhm.
and then what I'm working with. It's like that's how you show up for relationship,
Yeah.
is with all of those pieces, and then you're meeting somebody else with all of those pieces as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. It can
it's
be, it can be a really helpful, it is a really helpful tool to
yeah.
go in and look. And it's fascinating the patterns that you can start finding. I mean, like,
Hmm.
I'm working with a lot of people, so I can see like, oh, this mother son relationship is having similar problems to this mother son relationship and to this mother son relationship. Let's look at all these 6 charts, and you can see, oh, it's these 2 archetypes. They have these 2 archetypes that are the same as these 2 archetypes, and they're the same as these 2 archetypes.
and
Hmm.
then and then there's also Pluto in the 10th house or
Yes,
whatever,
yes,
like,
yes,
and
yes.
you're
They're
like,
all the same age, so they would all
right,
have that
yep,
same. Yep.
right.
And then, okay, let's see, where's dad? Ah, okay. So that energy is missing out of all these 3 kids' lives. So
Mm,
they're all dealing with the same dynamics, with the same archetypes. And so the energy patterns are really similar. And you can see how that's like in the physical reality world, how it's playing out in very similar ways. So then then that if you start working on those archetypes, even if it's just with the mom, how
mhm,
that's going to make such a huge shift
right,
for the child. And
right.
then to the child's life with his friends, with his school, with himself. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's
Such
it's
good work.
very, very, yeah, it's very, very powerful when
Yeah.
you start to do that that level of like integrated work.
Yeah.
Um, you know, with yourself and with other people.
Yeah.
Because it does. You start to see the patterns, you start to see the connections. And I think for me, when I was a kid, I saw those connections. Like I didn't have words for them, I didn't have names for them, but I was witnessing and observing
Yes.
those
Yeah.
kinds of connections and those kinds of like energy shifts and things that were happening in my world, in my classmates, in my family members, in my neighborhood,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when you have the names and the tools and the understanding of like what aspects or behavioral patterns might be connected to certain, like whether it's like the knight or whether it's the hero or the heroine or
Mhm.
whatever it is,
Mhm.
then that just gives you more information to work with.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well,
That
I
being
think
said, if you guys want your archetype chart read or your astrology chart read,
right,
give us a
right.
call.
Exactly, exactly. The archetype chart is incredibly, incredibly helpful.
So helpful.
Understanding your birth chart is very, very, very helpful. Like I said, it's like universe, it's like the universal weather,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
It's not it to me, I don't see it as like it's only one way. It's the weatherman can tell you it's going to be sunny and then all of a sudden halfway through the day it's raining.
absolutely.
So, all right. Well, I think
Okay.
it would be nice to do another video like specific to family,
Yeah.
even though we talked about, some family stuff in this video. It'd be nice to just kind of touch and maybe go a little bit
Mhm.
deeper just because some of those some of those soul contracts within the family relationships, they just can be a little bit more poignant for some folks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That
cool.
would be a good thing to do. We can do that for our next video.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah.
And like Or said, if you are interested in having your chart read, if you're interested in having an archetype chart created, you definitely contact either one of us,
Mhm.
and you'll find our contact information below.
Awesome.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.